Welcome to this video, where we will talk about the movie Maze Runner, The Scorch Trials. We will begin by exploring the movie storyline, summarizing its plot, and discuss the cast and characters. Then we will take a closer look at the film production details and box office performance. Finally, we will share review and audience reaction to give you a well-rounded perspective. Let's get started. Maze Runner: The Scorch Trials review. Of all the Yarn novels adaptations, The Maze Runner was for some the rose, but it was not any good either. It had in the integrate premise, but it the approach to storyline was so prospective story and full of the testing that it made demon line love writing seems the straightforward. It was a film that basically felt like just a setup for a sequel, and now have one in the form of the Scorch Trials. While it's a market improve over its the predecessor, it's only better in that it has gone from stupid to generic. Picking up right where the first film left off, the Scorch Trials answers some of the questions raised in the original but leaves other to the continue allowing. Thankfully, it does not dwell on its the mystery as much this time, instead becoming more focused on a simple action adventure. Go from a to B to C plot. While this does make the story less aggressive to pick apart, it now leaves even less impact. For the most part, the Scrooge trial is and the ice-scrabble predictable movie because it's the relief too much on tropes and the browse too many ideas from other film. The first act set in a military base. Research faculty is near identical to the first half of the Michael's Bay, the Iceland, and then the film introduced zombies but has absolutely no view and about what to do with them. The story is basically just a filmy third link together a series of action sequence, and what is not action is just characters explain the plot to each other. The bland and predictable dialogue does not idea from the other film. The first act set in a military-based research facility is an identical to the first half of the Michael Bay, the Iceland, and then the film introduces zombies but has absolutely no new idea about what to do with them. The story is basically just a filmy third link together a series of action sequence, and what is not action is just characters explaining the plot to each other. The bland and the predictable dialogues does not help much either. However, the film third act is the surprisingly strong thanks to a decent characters twist and a considerable raising the off task. Sure, it does not end up raising even more questions, but at least the film gives a stronger idea of what the next film is going to be. Another big flaw with the first Maze Runner were the incredible planned characters, and that's still a major downfall of the Scorch Trials. Dallon O'Brien's Thomas is still and the Incredibles plan. Mary's your figure, we are the constantly. Another big flaw with the first Maze Runner were the incredible brain characters, and that's still a major downfall of the Scotch Trials. Dylan O'Brien's Thomas is still and the Incredibles plan marries your figure. We are constantly told how important and special he is, yet has no the describable characters other than the being the hero. Chaos Claudio is again giving nothing to do as the token girls teaser but the providing visual hints to Thomas about their past, but the inclination that she will become more important next time is at least awaiting Thomas' other friends feel even driven than they did the first time around, instantly beings relegated to his the cheering required so much so that I forget why some of them we even dare. They dedicate this huge scene to one side character's death, and he was so generic and the unpermitted that it was until checking IMDb that I realized he did be in the first movie the whole time. In terms of the new blood, there are some broad. The first movie the whole time. In terms of new blood, there are some brighting spots. Janicles, exportations, and Rosalie's are welcome additions with a lot of the potential, but the film does not give exposes much to the other than the again future advance the plot. There are even more recognized faces here this time around the Barry people. Lily Taylor, Nathalia Imol, and the Alan Turkey, but a lot of them feel like they either throwaways or people they heard now just because they will become important later. Unfortunately, the main sore spot is the Aden Gallen, as the film new antagonist Jason. Gillen gives a fine enough performance, but the character is such an the obvious Avli MC clan from the start, and yet they keep trying to hide it during the first act. Casting director, please remember the band Kingsley principle in the future. If you want to keep the identity of the villain a secret, don't hear and the actor well known for playing a villain. The Scorch Trial is a visually well crafted. The Scorch Trials is a visually well crafted film, but like elements of the plot that mainly because they have brought ideas from the other work, especially video games. The film production designs and the creatures effect feel directly wrapped from the last of USA, while the visual of the criticized niche in and the kept brightening to mind space ops the line. There's a lot of the action in this installment, and while most of it is well shot and the choreography, the lack of the characters investment take away a lot of the tensions. The CGI work is decent throughout, but it does not feel the overuse. There a bite where they render array digitally to do something they probably just could have trained a real dad to do. Maze Runner, the Scorch Trials is not the frustrating experience that its the predecessor was, but it does not do much to elevate the franchise. Instead of trying to fix it the problem, it merely ignores them and focus instead on non-stop action scenes, like the first film it too often. Maze Runner The Scorch Trials is not the frustrating experience that its predecessor was, but it does not do much to elevate the franchise. Instead of trying to fix its problem, it merely ignores them and focuses instead on non-stop action scenes. Like the first film, it too often feels like they are making up the story as they go, but instead of the constantly throwing illogical twist at the audience. They just give us yet another chase sequence. It's overall a more tolerable experience than The Maze Runner, but I did not think anyone unconvinced by the first film will suddenly become. Instead, after watching the follow up, the third film, The Death Cure, is already confirmed. So now all we can do is hope they don't make the stupid decisions to split it into the two films. Maze Runner The Scorch Trials Review. While there is a series lack of the maze in this second installment, the Maze Runner series, there is more than enough running to make sure the title still makes sense. Maze Runner The Scorch Trials is the sequel to the 2014 blockbuster film based on the successful teenage book series, and it follows in the original film footstep with a fast pace and the surprisingly mature action. The themes and the story eliminates that the make up the foundation of the series are very similar in function. The huge game and other faction series based on a future dystopia where adults have a strange obsessions with the territorying teenage. That is not a slight to Maze Runner, as the huge game series obviously did something right to earn over $1 billion at the box office and was a major fact in the Jennifer Lawrence sudden rise to the star status. This leads to me point out that The Scorch Trials is not the most original film out there, all thought its the ambition is the admirable. Similar to the huge game, The Scorch Trials relies on its action sequence to keep the audience action deposit the depth of what the film created actually being quite impressed. There is a large estimate of the characters within the film, but this hurt it overall as many of the supporting characters are never fully fleshed out. The film Fury's back takes our hero themes play by the Dallin O'Brien and his the close alien out of the maze from the first film and they thrust them into locations after locations. They never seems to stay in area for longer than 10 minutes and while this helps the film stay fresh and the maintains its speeds, it's also become a respective and the story does not have much to progress during the numerous chase scenes. Sure, these chase scenes are usually pretty entertaining, but these always seems to be something new character that hour. Sure, these chase scenes are usually pretty entertaining, but they are always seems to be some things new that our heroes have to run from. Whatever it to be the military soldiers or infected humans that are instantly zombies. The zombies were probably the coolest twins in the movie. I did not think the film would get to terrifying scenes. I was accepting action, primarily gritty toward youth. Again, the film is not widely original, and major similarities could be seen in these thriller sequences and the other infection-filled stories, such as The Last of Us and the World War Z. Story was, however, the Maze Runner series actually offer a pretty cool world and plot line. It's the apocalyptic world is absolutely stunning as we see things like an intricity bird, understand dunes, and the background story has a lot to the offer. That being said, the film spent too much time on the constant maintenance that the Themis and his friend running to. Story wise, however, the Maze Runner series actually offer a pretty cool world and plot line. It's the apocalyptic world is absolutely stunning as we see things like an intercity burn, understand use, and the backstory has a lot to the offer. That being said, the film spent too much time on the constant marathons that the Thomas and his friends are running to really delve deeper into the world happening around them. Instead, the audience is the constantly subjected to the new characters and new setting at a furious pace which is turned slow down the story progress to a crawl. In the end, Maze Runner the Scorch Trials offer breathings, visuals, and the exciting chase scenes to make the film look great on the surface. Even the young actor brings solid performance to the big screen, but the reflecting back there seems to be a lot left to be there explored within the story and its vast collection of screen, but the reflection back seems to be a lot of to be explored within the story and its vast collection of the characters. The Scotch Trials had the chance to be a pretty great entry into the suddenly crowded future's teenage dystopia genre, but it's the ambitious approach comes up short in the regards to the story deposit building and the impressive world around it. Quick review Maze Runner The Scotch Trials. Sorry, I am a bit late on my quick review for the sequence to the Maze Runner, but here it is. I will be honest. I read the interior series. I did not think the sequel were as good as the first book. I actually did like the movie, however, it's straight from the book and the scenes are altered. So if you are not into that, you should probably not watch it. The movie space is a little off at the beginning, but it gets better halfway through. A problem I had was the way they entered the film mainly because I read the book and it was changed. I think one issue the film faced was the word the story was. We were left with a cliffhanger from the first movie in that the human race is the practically wipe out and the either is the affected by the flu. If you did not read the books, I think you did be confused to certain elements of the story. The flora and its effects on the human race needed more explain for the brand and the rest of the gang. Where and why are they not with the others? Vic and the Ratman, I do not want a brush cinematography of the film as anytime the camera was the pen out and the show a blank space view of the group journey, it was the quite amazing. The scene is the desert when the gunshot went off, the storm they were catch in. I think that was actually one of the confused to certain elements of the story. The flora and effects on the human race needed more explanations. Wu Brenda and the rest of the gang were, and why are they not with the others? VGKD and Ratman. I don't want to applaud the cinematography of the film as anytime the camera was the panned out and the shot a landscape view of the group journey. It was quite amazing. The scene in the desert when the gunshot went off the storm they were catch. I think that was actually one of the better parts of the movie, which is seeing some things. Hopefully the final movie can find it the place again in the Maze Runner story. The trilogy will end with The Death Cure its theaters 17 February 2017. Current rating Maze Runner The Scorch Trials Review. I missed The Maze. Last year, The Maze Runner was a surprising addition to the well-formed young adult adaptation genre set in a dustbin features. Though them actually familiar to the previous adaptations, The Maze Runner was thrilling and they shouted in a grace mystery. There was a palpable scene of the restlessness and the claustrophobia as the young inhabitants of the Glad were surrounded by a giant movie maze. It was the entertaining stuff. Maze Runner The Scorch Trials features no maze, but bring the young photography to the break outside world. The sequel features more characters and story that extending the runtime to a meandering get to the end already 131 minutes. Also, it should have been since if someone could have stopped to explain what a Scotch trial was, since they had 131 minutes to do so. Dallin O'Brien leads the pack. Again, the Thomas, some of the friends from the Glad join him in outside world, included News, Teresa, and the Fairbrand. Once they break free of the evil adult we are collectively known as the Wicked, they must run for their lives before the organization catches them. Patricia Clarkson's Coal and the Icy written as a heavy pack in a character that they will hopefully to explain in a inevitable sequel. She is the mainstream mind behind VCKDA and has the opportunity to be an interesting foil for Thomas and his crew. If this story ever developed her more, I have not read the James Dictionary novels from which the movie or the adapted. In their quest for a safe life outside of the Glad, Thomas and his friends run into a variety of people and the zombies. Maze Runner the Scotch Trial suck in a good amount of time the whirlwind in zombie movie dropping, adding nothing new or exacting to the idea of the running from the zombie. Garnier boat show up in the last act as the Jojo, who at one point kidnapped Thomas and his friends along with his daughter Ty Brenda, but they end up helping them against VCKD. Exposed show up a bit too late, but does added a bit of the spark and the mystery to the movie, which is often lacking in the sufficient synergy. Was Bell returning as a director and is very capable of making a solid action film. There are a few thrilling set pieces throughout the movie, but the allocated running time suffocated any of them. Action T as the Nolan, written as the screenwriter, and they never find a smooth way to add new characters to give any of the sporting players enough depth to the interesting. What made the Maze Runner so entertaining was the inherent mystery built within the story. Why are these kids in the Glad? What is happening outside of the maze? It kept us guessing until the end, with a bell hoodie by the most review, but it was something I did not see coming. Maze Runner, the Scotch Trials just go through the mention of a sequel trying to do hard to the previous installment. At one point, one of the characters reflects on their current situations and longs to be back in the Glad Me Too. The Maze Runner Scorch Trials review. Dark and more frightening than the preceding Maze Runner advent, this sequel is a surprisingly crafty chase movie with some clever sci-fi elements thrown in the for good measures. The performances are better, the characters are strong, and the visuals are truly stunning. Picking up where the first film left off, Scotch Trials follow over the Maze Runner as they head for the world they thinking is the salvations led by Thomas. The survivors are being held in a compound by the mysterious Jasons, who promise them everything will be fine once the group have been processed when the longer area. Show Thomas what is the really going on. Glider escape from what they believe is another VCKD trap and into the desolate and known as the Scorch, a place incredibles by the solar flares and home to the ramping crank. Their only hope is finding the legendary recent group known as the Right Arm and try and they uncover what is the really driving VCKD to hunt them down. The tone is the vastly different to the first film, as this is for some expensive both in terms of plot and its sheer scales of in the presentations, escaping the claustrophobia confusing of the gland and maze. The Scotch Trials is the visual rewarding and the journal from more everything than what precedes it. The actors are giving more, Marius too, the physical trials they faces. Their tone is the vastly different to the first film as this is first more expensive both in terms of plot and in the sheer scales of its presentation, escaping the claustrophobia confused of the glad and makes the Scotch Trials is visually rewarding and generally for more entertaining than what precedes it. The actors are giving more room to the muse too. The physical trials they faces are at time jaw-dropping presents when Thomas and the newcomer Brenda try to escape from the zombie like the clerk through a series of the collapse. High resist towers, the action kick into top gear with the break taking effectively. These sequences are the generally among some of the best you will see all year. They are the accelerating and the success of the first film has clearly led to a huge budget this time around. Director was Bell know exactly what to do with the mostly the word he has created is the spectacular and yet strangely familiar. It also a terrifying one. There are jumps applied when the light go out and the car are running just out of the sight. However, as the film enters its final act, it unfortunately starts to feel like some of the other young adult adaptations from the recent year. There are moments when you accept a middle distance mile trial to the toward in or an ultra branded national steamer to fly in on a helicopter but did not let the lead Lopez but you of the actors are having more of fun with the directions their characters take. There is a slow bleed trance there is a slow build trance that is an unaccepted as it is the fulfilling. You won't see it coming, but when you think back over what you have already seen it will make perfect scenes. Of course, most of the audience will already know all the twists and turns having read the books from which the series is adaptations, but the even then there is the plenty else to enjoy. O'Brien looks for the more like a proper movie star this time around. He looked like an innocent in the middle of the maze, but in the Scotch Thomas becomes the leader and the O'Brien becomes an action star of the sporting cast. Galen gets to go full the light figures and the key Hong Lee playing the bundle of the energy Mino, show off even more of the battle side. The present is surprising us before. You will have to go a long way to find a better. You will have to go a long way to find a better film coming out this year in this overcrowded genre. Directed was Bell. Years after release 2015, principal cast Dallin O'Brien Kia, Scordia, Thomas Body Stangers, Dexter Dran, Lily Taylor, Rose Lazar, Jackbo Loveland, Adin Gallin, Ki Hong Lee, Barry Preppers Rose Lazars. Approach running time 131 minutes. Snowpiercer, after having escaped the maze, the glider now face a new set of the challenges on the open roads of a desolated landscapes, filled with the unmanageable substance. Run kids run or did not, I did not care with its the presents. Poster take being the maze was just the being. I seriously had to question why that needed to be the case. All thought the hugely proper book reminds proper the film vacations of the story with its the pretense poster tag being the maze was just the being. I seriously had to question why that needed to be the case. All thought the hugely proper books remain air popular. The film versions of the story continue to be the disappoint. The Scorch Trials, the sequel 2014, The Maze Runner, only now missing the beginning because we need trailer compatible right. See the characters of the previous film released from the maze and now journeying across the blighted earth on some kind of the harrowing missions. I got all that for the poster because frankly I did forget in what happened in the previous movie and I am too dang lazy to read my own review of it. Anyway, a genre of film I am obviously not the target demography for because I am neither young nor keen on the distance adventure. The previous movie, and I am too dang lazy to read my own review of it, and even a genre of film I am obviously not the target demography for because I am neither young nor keen on the distance adventure film that have begun to all look the same. Spew forth it's the obligatory sequel. Perhaps this is the middle film with the kind of the presence mediography I have to come accept from many franchises these days, neither exacting nor memorable. The Scorch Trials merely blend into the hollow, sadly ornamental cookie cutters clone wars these films have slowly become, while the huge game is the gathering space to finally come to a much awaited end, and the Devastator series continue to the confuse everyone, including the people in it. The Scotch Trials labor to different itself from the peak and fairly alty to do so. Plot synopsis Country Wikipedia shortly apart being rescued from the maze Thomas and the remaining glider twist. Mino Teresa Angia and the Wistons are taken to a faculty run by the Mr. Jasons. He explained that the faculty is a safe haven, protecting them from the Vesicadia, the flu virus, and the crank, and provides them the cloth, food, and the situations where other survivors of the multiple maze are also present. Thomas becomes the curious about their activities and managed to find out what is really happening behind the closed door with help from the area's Johns, the first maze survivor to end up in the faculty. It is revealed the VCKDA leader, Avi, is still alive and that Mr. Jason is working for the VCKDA as they discuss about experiment on the lumens and that to end up in the faculty. It is the revealed that the VCKDA leaders is still alive and that Mr. Jason is working for the VCKDA as they discuss about the experiment on the lumens and that Jason yet to find the right arm. A residents group locked at the mountain. The group included areas escape the faculty as Jason ordered his physical troops to track them down, where they find themselves in the deserts outside what the Scotch. It's fair to say I went on the Scotch trials with the extensively low experience I am usually one to give a film chance, but the fact I did not remember anything at all about the previous film did not body well, and my fears were soon realized, picking up immediately where the previous film left off. The film wasted no time gathering space at its set people in the positive they need to provide the film with the maximum insable warring their mystery to solve here. immediately where the previous film left off. The film wasted no time gathering space as it sets people in the positive. They need to provide the film with the maximum ensemble warning. There are mystery to solve here. As adding gallons, Mr. Jason is not the forthcoming with the grand plan. He did not behind that the focus similar, and Thomas' suspicions are around. Almost immediately they arrive at the base. I guess that what happened when the little finger run things. All thought handsomely mounted the key issue the Scotch Trials is that it does not mean anything. A lack of emotional invest in any of the characters brought about a fact. All thought handsomely mounted the key issue the Scotch Trials is that does not mean anything. A lack of emotional investment in any of the characters brought about by a focus on the spatial and the dystrophobia rather than the developing the people on the screen, making this the entirely sound and the fury and very little else. As an action adventure film, I guess it the work well enough. If you enjoy kids running, screaming, shooting, raking, and the sweating, the film lengthy runtime will thus satisfy you on a multiple levels, just know intimately. It's an the empty, charmless, bland affair running on the famous Ophagen affair to take rise. The script will harm together from the James Danish novel of the same name. No doubt mind for it's the commercials profit than any significant Arctic mates having characters running around saying the word wicked for the overacting by guys under rescue, lot of the tension by the simply being. Doubt mind more of it's the commercial prospect than and the significant artic's mere. Having characters running around saying the word wicked for the overcatching bad guys undercut a lot of the tension by simply being the inherently silly. The characters never really flash out the way you hope. None of the people on the screen offer any real depth. A problem associated with the extents assemble cast all through the Scorch Trials attempt to the mitigate this with the fancy set the association brombats and a sense of the jeopardy drive from the having young kids trying to the outrun adult authority figures because authority figures are something to fear. Pack leader Thomas, played by the Dallas O'Brien, is solid role, and aside from a Bruce Lee devoured mystery backstory is generally engaging, but O'Brien's ability to convey all but the most substantial emotion state is the limited indeed. Poor Kia Scordia returns. Blues Reed Liver mystery backstory is generally engaging, but O'Brien's ability to convey all but the most suspicious emotion state is the limited indeed. Poor Kia Scordia returns as the film's central female role aside from the Patricia Clarkson's Wilson's antagonist, Ina Terry's who spends much of the film looking confused and the fighting with those two things often not mutely excessive. The rest of the cast belong in the generic aseptic model of the casting, the token Asian guy, the token black guy, the token British guy. Bodies Thomas Danger's probably returning, taking off this project. They all blend into each other in the end, just a slew of faces waiting to be picked off as the stakes continue to rise. At least in a film Antalized Maze Runner, there are plenty of the running. In fact, that's about all the cast seems to do when they are not gabbing about their probably a film fairly gripping zombie attack sequence in the film strikes me as World War Z sequence and the all thought hampered by a soul crushing PG rating. You almost want the film to do show a bite of the bloody bloodness and deliver some actual chill or the thrill rather than off-screen visuals. It pretends with the film inflected sequence are chilling in that 28 days later way and for a bite it looks like film is going to head right on into zombie movie story type. It does not in the end and had things continue like that the film might have been better for it. As monster go, the walking dead are more, making that the actually human villains. The film technical mere are the solid. You did not accept the scope of the film. The film technical merits are solid as you add, except the scope of the film is the sprawling and the desolated, the disadvantageous landscape, evoking a sense of the delicate humanity on the brink, and the John presents cure is the suitable plastic explicitly. There are no describable seams between grey screen and the real world action, so I am guessed there that a scene involving a person standing off the cracking glass above a sheer prop, similar to the one splintering used in The Lost World, bring a scene of the accident but a last fleeting moment before the surrounded is solved. It's a diverting moment in a film seemingly kick stepping its way between the action beat. Otherwise, the film follows basic generic plot beats. Character fight, characters die, one character gets sick, and the group must decide to either help him or leave him, and the nearly the constantly fear of the previous and naturally the constant fear of the pursuit is all encompassing for all the panographing and the antagonist write-in dialogues for all the stand and the geometry physical extent. The Scorch Trials is all just show. It's without depth, without the complaining narrative, and like many metal films, without the conclusion, it lacked the mystery of the original film premium. Now that the characters are out of the maze and the result discovery motivate and offered is not strong enough to warrant this much effort, the Scotch Trials just the coast along, wheeling itself across the line as it the sulphur, the characters from one place to another without real convention if you are willing to suspend, disable, and if you are able to survive the film clunky logic hall and the absurdity, then you will find it entertaining enough. Not me though. This film confused the hell out of me. Maze Runner 2 tops origin box office with $43.3 million. Maze Runner The Scorch Trials raced to the top of the Foreign box office, picking up a robust $43.3 million from the 66th market. The young adult thriller took the top spot in the 30 of the those terrorists. Its strong start was followed by the healthy debuts in the South Korea where it earned $7.5 million, Russia with the $3.8 million, Brazil with the $2.7 million, and the Venezuela with the $2.5 million. Next weekend, with the flu with the expand into seven additional markets, included Germany, Belgium, and the Switzerland. So for the second Maze Runner has the earned $108.3 million globally. Its debut in the USA on Friday, but got a jump on its domestic release by the Byung in the survival terrorist last weekend. 20th Century Fox is the distributing the film, which cost $71 million to produce, and the focus on the group of the teenagers negative are deadly post apological words. In the second place, Universal Everest earned $28.2 million across 36 international tourists, bring its the worldwide total to the $35.8 million. The adventure film debuted this weekend in the North America with a special IMAX and the premiere larger format run, earning a sizable $7.6 million from the 545 locations overseas the film opened in the first place in more than a dozen locations, included Australia, India, Mexico, the USA, and the Ireland. Everest tells the story of a group of the mountain climbers whose attempt to the summit the famous mountain ends to the tragedy it costs $55 million to produce and stars Jackson Clark, Josh Brolin, and the Jack Glenn. Minions capture this the place overseas, grossing on an estimate $22.8 million across 57 territories and the pushing it the worldwide total to the $1.12 million. The bulk of the weekend gross came from the China, where the Universal and the Illuminations Entertainment release took first place with the $9.8 million deposit. Competition for family audience from the Sony Pixel, the Adam Sandler video game comedy earned $11.7 million from the People Republic. In fourth place, Mission Impossible Rouge Nations added $21.2 million to It's the Whole, with $656.4 million worldwide. The fifth film in the spy series is closing on Ghost Protocol, $694.7 million global take. In fourth place, Mission Impossible Rouge Nations added $21.2 million to It's the Whole, with the $656.4 million worldwide. The fifth film in the spy series is closing in on Ghost Protocol $694.7 million global take as it tries to become the highest grossing film in the franchise history. China has been the particles helpful in that the pursuits Rouge Nation picked up $18.2 million in the country and has earned $120 million from the China since opening there on 8 September. High School Comedy Fuck Joe got to the fifth place with the $60 million. The German production has earned $43 million in 2 weeks after breaking records to become the biggest local film debut in the country history. Maze Runner The Scorch Trials wins box office Black Mass and the average open strong. Maze Runner 2 beats Black Mass at the box office with $30.3 million. A group of kids trying to survive in a post apocalyptic wasteland squared off against a largely gangster at the box office this weekend. According to the estimates, the box office mojo the kids provide with the 20th Century Fox Maze Runner, the Scorch Trials taking the top spot this weekend with $30.3 million, while Warner Bros. Crime drama Black Mass took second place with the $23.3 million. Black Mass Crime drama Black Mass took second place with the $23.3 million. Black Mass received a much better reception from the nation's critics, scoring a solid 76 fresh rating from the Rotten Tomatoes, while The Maze Runner, The Scorch Trials posted a 49% Rotten Tomatoes rating from the site. Both of those ratings are down from the earlier this week, though one Black Mass had an the 87 rating and The Maze Runner, The Scorch Trials and a 62-point ratings. The Maze Runner, The Scorch Trials open in 3,791 theaters this weekend, posting a solid 7,993 per screen average in its opening weekend. While it did take the top spot, it was actually a bit lower than the opening of its predecessor, The Maze Runner, which opened in the same weekend last year to the trio of the $32.5 million, posting a solid 7,993 per screen average in its opening weekend. While it did take the top spot, it was actually a bit lower than the opening of its predecessor, The Maze Runner, which opened in the same weekend last year to the tune of $32.5 million. The first movie based on the James Tester's young adult novel earned $102.4 million domestically and $2,038.3 million internationally for a worldwide total of the $340.1 million from the $24 million budget. The sequel was broadcast $61 million budget. So with this lower opening weekend, it may have a together timing earning a profit than the first movie. The Maze Runner stars Dylan O'Brien, Thomas Brody Sangsters, Kia Scolaria is the Hong Lee and the Patricia Clarkson written from the sequel. The Maze Runner stars Dalena O'Brien, Thomas Bordia, Kia Scolaria, Ki Hong Lee and the Patricia Clarkson, written from the sequel The Maze Runner, The Scorch Trials, with the Woz Bell coming back to direct. The follow-up also boasts a slew of new characters as well, played by the Natalia Imyol and the Aidan Gallen, who both co-star on the Game of the Thrones, along with the Katharina and Namra, Gan Clark, Abstoto, and the Lee Taylor. After escaping the massive maze known as the Glade, these youngsters are faced with the surviving in the Dee's low wasteland of the earth, now known as the Scorch. This adaptation will be followed by the final installment in this beloved Maze Runner franchise, The Maze Runner: The Death Cure. Unfortunately, fans will have to wait a bit longer for the final with The Maze Runner. We'll have to wait a biggest long for the final with The Maze Runner: The Death Cure, set to hit the theaters on the 17 February 2017. Warner Bros. R-rated drama Black Mass pulled in a solid 700,327 per screen average from 3,188 theaters. The film was produced from a $53 million budget under the direction of the biopic of James Whitey Bulger's star Johnny Depp in a rare villainous run as the Boston mobsters, who was a fixture on the FBI top 10 wasted list, often right behind Awesome, behind Landis. This the gangster survive as the inspiration from the Jack Nicholson Frank Constantine in The Departed and the Peter Calm in the Town. Also starting in the director Scott Cooper crime drama is the Dr. Johnson's Joel Edgerton Bennett. Hauled over the visit $11.3 million, $42.3 million domestic, and The Perfect Guide $9.6 million, 41 domestically, dropped to the third and the fourth place respectively, with new release Arrest rounding out the top 5 with the $7.5 million. The thriller, based on the true story of a mountain Everest expanding the climb, the lives of the 12 climbers, opened exclusively in the 545 IMAX theaters, posting the best pre-screen average in the top 10 with the $30,872 million. The film will expand nationwide starting September 25 after its week-long IMAX only run. Although we do not have an exact theaters count yet. Average, directed by the Cormacher, features a star-standard cast including Jack Gyllenhaal, Jason Clarke, Josh Brolin, and the John Hawkes. The top 10 was rounded out by War Room $6.2 million, $49 million domestic, A Walk in the Woods $2.7 million, $24.7 million domestic, Mission Impossible Rejuvenation $2.2 million, $191.7 million domestic, Straight Outta Compton's $1.9 million, $158.9 million domestic, and new release Captive in the top spot with the $1.4 million. Captive opened in the 806 theaters, pulling in a paltry 1,137 per screen average. Although its drop out of the 5 war continue to impress the at box office, expanding into the 298 more theaters this weekend for a total theaters count of 1,955. The film was produced for just $3 million, and with the film expanding each weekend, it continued to spot minimal drops for the previous weekend, with these estimate just the $90.6 million down from the last weekend tally, opening in limited release in the critical acclaim Scorpio, which is already generating plenty of the Oscar buzz. The film pulled in the astonishing 390,000 from just 6 theaters for the incredible $65,000 per screen average. The crime drama starring Emily Blunt, Bacon Dallas Toro, and the Josh Brolin will expand into the more theaters next weekend before getting a night-wide release on the 2 October. Also opening in the limited release was Beyond Sacrifice, which earned $206,879 from the 33 screens. Released on 2 October, also opening in limited release was the Beyond Sacrifice, which earned $206,879 from the 33 theaters from a 6,269 per screen average. Now box office number worthy posted for the other movie opening in the limited release, The Western Company About Rob, starting Nomia Where's Ali Franking and Susan Sarandon's War Peak startings, Mikey Rockers and the Dolph Lundgren's and the Curtis startings, Elijah Wood looks ahead to next weekend. Three new movie debut in the wide release Sony Emissions comedy sequel Hotel Transylvanium 2, Warner Bros. Comedy, The Intern and the High to releasing and the Bombly House The Green Inform, Hotel Transylvania 2 and The Intern currently does not have enough review on the Rotten Tomatoes yet, but The Green Inform, which was originally set to hit theaters last fall, currently has a 63% R rating opening in the limited release next weekend in the Broad Green Pictures 99 home starting Andrew Garfield and the Michael Shannon, Doof House, The Keeping Room starting Hal, Seinfeld and the Sam Worthington's A24 film, My Peeps Grind starting Ryan Ronaldo and the Bean Mendelsohn and this new well starting Jonathan Ria. Be sure to check back on the Sunday for the box office estimates. Film Massive Grind starting Ryan Reynolds and the Ben Delsim and the Stonewall starting Jonathan Ryan Mayers. Be sure to check back on the Sunday for the box office estimate and again on Tuesday for next week's estimate. Until then, take a look at this weekend top 10 at the box office. Box office Maze Runner 2 springs past Johnny Depp's Black Mass with the $30.3 million. Mobsters, mountains climbers, and the teenage recars built into the multiplexes this weekend, lifting the overall box office. But previewing any one film from the domestic ticket sales, Maze Runner: The Scorch Trials, a sequel to last year's post Apollo clapped young adult adaptation for best. It go off to a solid star by the opening characters with the $30.3 million film from the 61 and the distributed by the 20th Century Fox. The picture brought in the 3,791 location receiving intense competition from the Black Mass, which the likely contributed to it failing too much or the excuse the $32.5 million debut of its the predecessor. Some people accepted for more aware of the newcomers, but it was still a healthy weekend by the September standard. And Bill Continue, Vice Presidents and the Chief said Bill Continue, Vice Presidents and the Chief Analyst and the box office com. There was a lot of the divestors, but that can cut both ways. It builds everything up, but sometimes competitions happen and there are little cannibalizations. Popular on Friday. Black Mass, a look Boston's gangster Whitey Bellers and his The Unholy Aliens with the FBI has been hailed as a returner to from the Johnny Depp, who had the squandered criticals and the audience goodwill with the too many, Modricia and the Long Rangers. Bolstered by a cast of the respected characters across and the Wistons such as Duel Anderson, Benedict Cumberbatch and the Kevin Bacon cost $53 million to make. Strong review helped push with the Warner Bros. Film to a respectable second place finish with the $23.4 million across 3,188 locations that puts in the line with the other beats crime drama such as The Departed, which started with the $26 million in 2006 and The Town, which kicked off to the $23.8 million in the 2010. Deep was the big attraction with the 55% of audience member reporting that his run as the psychopathic crime lord with the dead blue eyes was the reason they bought tickets. Johnny Depp always swings for the fences and sometimes he strikes out, but this was a generated slam, said Jeff Golson's Warner Bros. Distribution's executive vice president. He has the face of evil. Then there was the universal average, which opted to give a wide berth to the generous treat and the futuristic teens by the opening in a special IMAX and premium format run. The film app and the approach used by the Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol in 2011. An approach used by Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol in 2011, which debuted to the $30.3 million on these specialty screens before having its wide release, averaged beyond to a sterling $7.6 million across 545 screens, for a per screen average of the 30,867 and a fifth place finish. The $55 million adventure film starred Jason Clarke, Josh Brolin, and the Jack Gyllenhaal, and was the backed by Cross Creek working title and the Wilderness Media. It's the receptions. It good news for the walk. The Sony film about Terafia Walker Philippine Pete, which is the employing as a similar IMAX and the premium format debut as a way to the generate best. Universal was the particles place the invested receive an A. Universal was the particular place that the average receive an A cinema scores, a sign that the tickets buyer will be recommended that film to friends and the family. The good news in the like hit. Said Nick Carpio, Universal Domestic Distribution Chief. It's a human interview story, but the enhanced format highlights another important characters, and that's the sheer mountain and nature in all its the horrible glory. Maze Runner the Scorch Trials brought in an the identical device group of that the same to the response to a cast African American, Asians, and the Hispanic actors in the prominent roles. Maze Runner the Scotch Trials brought in and the ethical deserves group of people that seems to the response to a cast that included African American, Asians, and the Hispanic actors in the permanent roles. Positions accounted from less than half of the opening weekend crowded, with the females accounting for the 53% and the 63% of audience coming in under the age of the 25. Overseas, the film is the outpicking its predecessor, having earned $78 million after 2 weeks of release. We have a very loyal fan base, said Christian's Edison's Fox domestic distribution chief. We have cultivated it. We have a very loyal fan base, said the Garrison Aaron and Fox domestic distribution chief. We are cultivated it, and if you look at the demographic date, we have the broadened it. Deposit the success Fox has with the debut The Maze Runner film on this September weekend, the third film in the series. That Cure won't hit theaters until the President's Day weekend in 2017 is the final, so we went to take our time, said Arrowsense. The top 5 was the rounded out by the Universal. The visit week picked up $11.3 million in its the second weekend and the third place, and Sony the Perfect Guy, which they finished with the $9.7 million in the fourth position. The film have made $42.3 million and the $41.4 million respectively. They left captive Paramount's attempt to the wrangles the faith-based crowded that they lifted. War rooms to the box office highs with the Roushly $1.4 million after buying on the 806 locations. It's a mediocre showing, but the giving the film $2 million budget, it does not carry a lot of risk. Captive is a true story about a woman, Cat Mira, who gains strength from a celebrity pastor Rick Warner inspirational books while the being held hostage by an ex-convict. In the indicted word Blackstreet debut, Pan sacrificed a local trouble chases great Bobby Fighters to the 206 879 for a per screen average of 3,269, while the line stage got dragged by the thriller Scorpio of a sizzling star of the 3,900 from just 6 engagements that translate to a sterling 65,000 per screen average, the highest this year. Scorpio explained to the approximately 5 theaters next weekend and the goes wide on the 2 October. We want to be assured that we establish ourselves and the building a long runway, said David Spite, executive vice president of the distribution at the long stage, ending when these kind of film reach and the audience and word of the mouth start to spread, they become events. He predicted Scorpio was stars Emily Blunt as a steely FBI agent would play well to both generated because it's offer such a meaty role for an actress in the kind of the part usually. He predicts Scorpio, which starred Emily Blunt as a steely FBI agent, would play well to the bot generator because it offers such a many meat role for the an actress in the kind of the part usually received for me. In the milestone news, Sony Pictures Ephraim War become because the fifth highest grossing faith-based film, earning $49.2 million to date, while Mr. Homeless with Landy Amclance now the ranks as the second highest grossing film in the roadside attractions history with the $17.5 million behind only the Mud with the $21.6 million. Overall ticket sales rose 90% over the year ago period when the first Maze. Overall ticket sales are 90% over the years ago period when the first Maze Runner and the Lime Nascence awoke among the top stones top the box office. Maze Runner sequel Runner's Rings sound black mass at the USA box office. The Western sequel Maze Runner The Scorch Trials secured the top spot at the USA box office this weekend, with an opening haul of the 30.3 M just ahead of the Johnny Depp's Oscars trip turned as a brutal Boston bomb. Boss in the Black Mass, The Fantastic Tale, came in the behind series opener The Maze Runner which the managed $32.5 million on the debut a year ago. Dylan O'Brien, Thomas Bodian, Stranger Ki Hong Lee, Kia Scorpio, and the Patricia Clarksons written from the sequel which has received mixed review. This time around, the named runners are the picture against a new series of theaters and behind to discover more about the mysterious Whiskey organization that the theaters then after escaping the artificial maze environment. Rose Lasers, Jacob, Low-Flanded Garcia, Esposito Adine Gallin, Barry Paper, Lee Talor, and the Alan John the new cast. Black Mass, which is the eyeing and the award season run after winning the criticized at the Toronto Telluride and the Vacnic Film Festival score a more than the respectable $23.4 million on the debut in the second place, starting Damp as a mysterious real-life gangster Whitey Bulgars who enjoy a regions of the terror over South Boston in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. Scott's copper crime biopic also features Joel Edison's Benedict Cumberbatch, Kevin Bacon, Scotty Stalls, Peter Strand, and the Jesse Plemons in the supporting role. The only other new film to make the top 10 this weekend was the disaster thrilling average, which scored $7.5 million on limited release to land in the fifth spot. Bester Camrock film only the screen at the 545 IMAX and the larger format locations taking a spectacular 30,867 per site and breaking IMAX September opening record with the 6 million from the 366 sites. Starting Jason Clarke, John Brolin, Robin Wright, Carrie Knight Cares, Sam Washington's. The only other new film to make the top 10 this weekend was the disaster thrilling Everest, which scored $7.5 million on limited release to land at the fifth spot. Blaster Sir Cormaker film only screened at 554.5 MX and larger format locations taking a specialist 30,867 per sites and the breaking IMAX September opening record with the 6M from the 366 site. Starting Jason Clarke, Josh Brolin, Robin Wade, Carrie Knight largely, Sam the Washingtons and the Jack Gyllenhaal. The film centers on the two groups of the Simbers catch up in the 1996 mountain Everest disasters when a blizzard took the lives of the 8 people on the word Tall's Peak. It will open across the USA and the Canada and the weekend. The top 5 was rounded out by the M. Night Shyamalan horror The Visit with the $11.3 million for a second with the total of the $22.3 million in third and the last week number 1 The Perfect Guy with the $9.7 million in its second week for a total of the $41.4 million. Outside the top 10, critical acclaim the Danish Valiner climber thriller Scorpio scored the highest locations average of the year so far, 65,000 on the limited release at the Sixth Cinema in New York and the Los Angeles. Outside the top 10, critical acclaim, Danvish Wilson criminal thriller Scorpio scored the highest location average of the year so far, 65,000 on limited release at the Sixth Cinema in the New York and the Los Angeles. Quick review: Maze Runner: The Scorch Trials. I will be honest, I read the interior series. I did not think his sequels were as good as the first book. I actually did like the movie. However, it's there from the book and the scenes are alternate, so if you are not in that, you should probably not watch it. The movie piece is a little off at the beginning, but it gets better halfway through. A problem I had was the way they ended the film, mainly because I read the book and it was the change. I think one issue the film faced was what the story was. We were left with a cliffhanger from the first movie in that the human race is the practical web out and the earth is the affected by the flatters. If you did not read the books, I think you did be confused to certain elements of the story. The flora and its effect on the human race needed more explanations. Who Brenda and the rest of the gang were, and why we are they not with the others. VC Katia and Ratman, I do want to upland the cinematography of the film as the anytime the camera was the panned out and the show a landscape view of the grooming journey. It will was quite amazing. The scene in the descent when the gunshot went off the storms they were cottage in. I think they was actually one of the piece. Confused to certain elements of the story, the flare and its effect on the human race needed more explanations. Who Brenda and the rest of the gang were, and why are they not with the others? Wisicadia and Ratman. I did not want to upload the cinematography of the film as any time. The camera was panned out and show a landscape view of the group journey. It was quite amazing. The course in the deserts when the he gunshot went off the storms they were catch in. I think that was actually one of the better parts of the movie, which is seeing some things. Hopefully, the finally movie can find its place again in the Maze Runner story. The trilogy will end with that cure in theaters 17 February 2017. Maze Runner: The Scorch. I miss the maze. Last year's The Maze Runner was a surprising addition to well-warmed young adult adaptations genre set in a dystopian features. Though thematicals similar to previous year adaptations, The Maze Runner was thrilling and they shrouded in a great mystery. There was a palpable sense of the restlessness and the claustrophobia as the young inhabitants of the Glad were surrounded by a giant movie maze. It was the entertaining stuff. Maze Runner: The Scorch Trials features no maze but bring the young photography to the black outside world. The sequel features more runtime to a meaning get to end already 131 minutes. Also, it would have been since if someone could have stopped to explain what a Scotch trial was, since they had 131 minutes to do so. Delan O'Brien leads the pack again as Thomas. Some of his friends from the Glad join him in the outside world, including Newt, Teresa, and the Frapants. Once they break free of the evil adults, who are the collectively known as the Viscadia, they must run for their lives before the organization catches them. Particle Klaxon School and the IC return as a Avalpiga in a characters that will hopefully be expanded in the inevitable sequel. She is the mastermind behind Visicadia and has the opportunity to be an interesting foil for the Thomas and his crew. If these stories ever develop her more, I have not read the James Tension novels from the which movie are adapted. In their quest for a safe life outside of the Glad, Thomas and his friends run into a variety of people and the zombie. Maze Runner the Scorch Trials spend a good amount of time delving in zombie movie tropes, adding nothing new or exciting to the idea of the running from the zombie. Gan Corlap's sword shows up in the last act as a Jago who at one point kidnaps Thomas and his friends along with his daughter types Brenda, but then ends up the helping them against Wisicadia episode show up a bit too late, but does add a bit of the spark and the mystery to the movie, which is often lacking in the sufficient synergy. Was well written as the director and is very capable of making a solid action film. There are a few thrilling set pieces throughout the movie, but the elongated running times suffocated any of the action. T.S.D. Nolan written as the screenwriter and they never find a smooth way to add new characters or give any of the supporting players enough depth to the interesting. What made the Maze Runner so entertaining was the inherent mysteries built with the story. Why are these kids in the gland? What is happening outside of the maze? It kept us guessing until the end, with a Bollywood by the most reveal, but it was something I did not see come. Maze Runner The Scorch Trials just goes through the motions of the sequel, trying to head to the previous installment. At one point of the characters reflect on their current situations and longers to be back in the glad me too. The Maze Runner Scorch Trials review. Dark and the more frightening the preceding Maze Runner and Yeager. The sequel is a superbly crafted chases movie with some clever sci-fi elements thrown in for good measures. The performances are better, the characters are strong, and the visuals they are truly stunning. Picking up where the first film left off, Scorch Trials follow and the Maze Runner as they head for what they think is the solutions led by Thomas, Dylan O'Brien. The survivors are being held in a compound by the mysterious Jasons, Ed and Galen, who promise they everything will be fine once the group have been the process. Well loner areas show Thomas what is really going on. The gliders escape from what they believe another Visicaria trap into the desolate land known as the Scotch, a place instead by the solar flare and home to the repamping crank. Their only hope is finding the largely residents group known as the Right Arm and try and they uncover what is really driving Visicaria to hunt them down. Their tone is the vastly different to the first film, as is far more expensive both in terms of plot and is the sheer scales of its the presents, escaping the claustrophobia confuse of the glade and the maze. The school trials is visually rewarding and the journal for more entertaining one word. Presenting it, the actors are giving more merit to the physical trials they faces. Daytona is vastly different to the first film as this is more expensive both in terms of plot and in the sheer scale of its the presentation escaping the claustrophobia confuse of the glade and the maze the Scotch Trials is visually rewarding and the journal for more entertaining than what pursues it. The actors are giving more room to the measures too. The physical trials they faces are at times jaw-droppingly presented when Thomas and the newcomer Brenda try to escape from the zombie-like crank through a series of the collapsed high-rise towers. The action kicks into top gear with the breathtaking efficiency. These sequences are the generally among some of the best you will see all year. They are the exhilarating and the success of the first film has clearly led to a huge budget this time around. Director Wal Director was Pal knows exactly what to do with the money. The word he was created is the spectacular and yet stranger familiar. It's also a terrifying one. There are jumps planted when the lights go out and the crank are lacking just out of the sight. However, as the film enters to final act, it the unfortunately start to feel like some of the other young adult adaptations from the recent year. They are moments when you accept a merely disinterested Miles try to the wonder in or an utterly or Narilla drummers to fly in on a helicopters, but don't let the late low spot of the actor eye having more fun with the directions their characters take. There is a clue built runs that is an unaccepted that is the fulfill you won't see it come, but when you think back overward, you have already seen it will make perfect scenes. Of course, most of the audience will already know all the twists and turns having read the books from which the film series is adapted, but even then there is the plenty else to enjoy. Our brain looks for the more like a proper movie star this time around. He looked like an innocent in the midst of the maze, but in the Scotch Thomas become a leader and the O'Brien becomes and the action star of the sporting cast. Callan gets to go full the light figure and the key Hong Lee playing the belly of the energy menu show off even more of the brutal side the pleasantly surprise us before. You will have to go a long way to find a better film coming out this year in this overcrowded genre. Director Wes Bell, year of release 2015, principal cast Dallin O'Brien, Thomas Bordia, Disaster Darren, Adele Gallin, Ki Hong Lee, Jackbo Flowland, Barry Preppers, Rose Selzers, Lily Taylor, Alan Toddy, Criticals Clarkson. Approach running time 131 minutes. Synopsis. After having escaped the maze, the Glanders now faces a new set of the challenge of the open doors of a desolate landscapes filled with the unimaginable obstacles. Filled with the unimaginable obstacles. Run kids run or don't, I don't care. With its the pretends poster take being the maze was just being I seriously had to question why that need to be the cash all thought hugely proper book reminds proper the film versions of the story. With its the pretends poster tag being the maze was just the beings I seriously had to question why that needed to be the case. All thought hugely proper books reminds air proper the film versions of the story continue to disappoint. The Scorch Trials, the sequel to 2014, The Maze Runner, only now missing the lad at the being because we need trailer complete right. See the characters of the previous film released from the maze and now journeying across the brink earth on some kind of the harrowing missions. I got all that from the poster because frankly I did forgotten what happened in the previous movie and I am too dang lazy to read my own review of it. Anyway, a genre of film I am obviously not the target demography from because I am neither young or nor keen or detestance adventure. The previous movie, I am not too dang lazy to read my own review of it. Anyway, a genre of film I am obviously not the target demography for because I am neither young nor hot nor keen on the dystopian adventure film that have begun to all look the same. Spew forth it's the obligatory sequel. Perhaps this is a medial film with the kind of the pensions mediocrity I have come to accept from many Frenchies these days. Neither exacting nor memorable, the Scorch Trials merely blend into the hollow, sadly uneventful cookies cutter clone wars this film have slowly become, while the Hunger Game is the gathering space to finally come to a much awaited end, and the Devogranti series continue to the confuse everyone, included the people in it. The Scotch Trials liberated to the differentiate itself from the pack and fell utterly to do so. Plot synopsis got tasty Wikipedia. Shortly after being the rescue from the maze, Thomas, Delan O'Brien, and the remains gladder next Thomas, Bodia Stangers, Minoki Hong Lee, Teresa Annis, Feryan and the Wistons are taken to a faculty run by the Mr. Jasons. He explained that the faculty is a safe haven, protecting them from the Visicaria, the flavor wars, and the cranks, and providing them clothes, food, and the simulations, where other survivors of the multiple maze are also present. Thomas became curious about their activities and their manages to find out what is really happening behind the cloud doors. With help from the Aris Jones, Jackpo Lofland, the first male survivor to end up in the faculty, it is revealed the VCKDA leaders Avi is still alive and that Mr. Jason is working for the VCKDA as they discuss about experiment of the lumens and that to end up in the faculty, it is revealed that the Wikipedia leaders O is still alive and that Mr. Jason is working for the Wikipedia as they discuss about the experiment on the lumens and that Jason had yes to find the right arm, a residence group located at the mountains. The group included Aries escape the faculty as Jason's order his the Wikipedia troops to track them down where they find themselves in the disaster outside world. The Scotch it's fair to say I went on to the Scorch Trials with the expectations, low expectations. I am usually one to give a film a chance, but the fact I did not remember anything at all about the previous film don't body well, and my fears were soon realized, picking up immediately where are the previous film left off. The film wasted no time gathering peace as it's the set people in the position they need to provide the film with the maximum inevitable warner. There are mystery to solve here. Immediately, where the previous film left off, the film wasted no time gathering peace as it sets people in the positions they need to provide the film with the maximum ensemble warning. There are mystery to solve here, as the Aaron Gelson, Mr. Jason is not the forthcoming with the grand plan. He did not behind the first climbs, and this Thomas surprisingly are around almost immediately they arrive at the base. I guess that what happened when the little finger runs things. All thought handsomely mounted. The key issue the Scorch Trials is that it does not mean anything, a lack of emotional investment in any of the characters brought about by a all thought handsomely mounted. The key issue the Scorch Trials is that it does not mean anything, a lack of the emotional investment in any of the characters brought about by a focus on the spectacles and the dysophobia, rather than developing the people on the screen, making this entirely sound and the fury and very little else as in the action adventure film. I guess it worked well enough if you enjoy kids running screaming, shouting, wrecking, and the sweating. The family lengthy runtime will the stay. The family lengthy runtime will the stay see you on the multiple levels. Just know intellectually. It's an example, charmless planned affair running on famous of the genre afraid to take risks. The script feel hammered together from the James Dexter novels of the same name. No doubt mine for more of the commercial perspective than any the significant artificial materials, having characters running around saying the word wicked for the overcatching bad guys, undercues lot of the tension by the simply being. Doubt mine more offers the commercial perspective than any signification artist materials having characters running around saying the word wicked for the overcatching bad guys undercuts and lot of the tension by the simply being inherently silly. The characters never really flesh out the way you hope. None of the people on the screen you of any real depth, a problem associated with the extensive ensemble cast, all thought this cross trials attempt to the mitigate this with the fancy set associated bomb bits, associates, bomb pyramids, and the sense of the jeopardy derived from the having young kids trying to the outrun adult authority figures because authority figures are something to fear pack leader Thomas, played by the Dallas O'Brien, is a solid role, and aside from a Bruce Lee deliver mystery backstory is the generally enjoying, but the O'Brien ability to convey all but the most suspicious emotion state is limited indeed. Poor Kia Scodelario returns. O'Brien is a solid role, and the aside from a Bruce Lee deliver mystery backstory is generally engaging, but O'Brien's ability to convey all but the most superfictional emotional state is limited indeed. Poor Kia Scoria returns as the film's central female role aside from the Patricia Clarkson's Wilson's antagonist in a Teresa who spent much of the film looking confused and the frightened with those two things often not being manually exclusive. The rest of the cast belong in the generic antiseptic model of the casting the token Asian guy, the token black guy, the token British guy. Brody Thomas suggested probably regarding taking on this project. They all blend into the each other in the end, just a slew of faces waiting to pick up off as the stakes continue to rise. At least in a film and lies Maze Runner, there plenty of the running. In fact, that about all the cast seem to do when they are not gabbing about their problem. A very gripping zombie attack sequence in the film strikes me as World War Z squeak, and the all thought hammered by a soul crushing PG rating. You almost want the film to show a bite of the bloody bloodness and deliver some the actual chills or thrill rather than the off-screens we say it represents with. The film infected sequence are chilling in that 28 days later way, and for a bite it looks like the film is going to head right on it the zombie movie story type it did not in the end, and had things continued like that film might have been the better for it. As monsters go, the walking there are far more making that the actual human villains. The film technical mere art is solid as you accept. The scope of film is the swelling and the desolate, the devastated landscape evoking a sense of the dilapidated humanity on the brinks, and the John Pearson score is the suitable plastings. Blessed there note the describable seams between green screen and the real world action. So I guess there that I knew involving a person standing off the cracking glass above a sheer drop, similar to the one Splanger used in the Lost World, bring a sense of the excitement, but last of fleeting moments before the contract is solved. It's a diverting moment in a film seemingly kick stepping its way between action beats. Otherwise, the film follows basic genre plot beats. Character fight, character die, one character gets sick, and the group must decide to either help him or leave him, and the naturally the constant fear of the pursuit is all encompassing for all the pony facting and the against riding dialogues for all the stand and the genetic physical extent. The Scorch trial is all just show. It's without depth, without complaining narrative, and like many middle films, without the conclusions. It takes the mystery of the original film prime. Now that the characters are out of the maze and the results discovery motive on the offer here is not strong enough to warrant this much offer. The Scotch Trials just the course along, willing itself across the line as it the surface the characters from one place together without real convictions. If you are willing to suspense, disbelievable, and if you are able to survive the film clunky, logic's hall and the absurdity, then you will find it entertaining enough. Note me though, this film confused the hell out of me. Maze Runner The Scorch Trials reviewed as sequel, deliver hype or hit. What happened when Hollywood demands a sequel to a relative straightforward young adult novel like The Maze Runner? You lose any trace of the Lord of the Files inspires social tension, and the rest is filled with the yak clashes and the zombie movie tropes, which comes with the accept a zombie bite our friend scenes. As the film starts, Our protagonist from the first film, Thomas Delan O'Brien, and his the companion Snuis, Thomas Bordia Stangers, Minoki Hong Lee, Frappin, Disasters Darren, Wistons, and the Teresa get a belief glimpse of the Wisterland that the earth has become. From there, our teens are the whisked away by the Whisked, the mysterious bad guy organization, and taken to a self-heaven only to flee with the curious protagonist discovers some things is not quick right. We set them for the interior film young people trapped in and the oppressive world run by the evil adult. There is not much characters bad guy organizations and taken to a self heaven only to flee when the curious protagonist discovers something is not quite right which sets the themes of the interior film. Young people trapped in and the oppressive world run by evil adults. There is too much characters development and that okay for viewers still familiar with the first movie but not so much for the newcomer. Sure, the first half of the film is the instantly every year dystopian story, but the national strength lies within the second half. Discover was Bell bring the right amount of the energy with the rat eating, Martin Zombie plus rebels, four spells we get Barry preppers with a Gatling gun. Viewers are the treated to a demented rave with the roofy Aprodis Zombia on the Giants, all the hosted by the Alan Tuddy, Ball keeping them movie at a first aid and the instance, piece without the fracking, Cripsty up until the very end. But the question still remains that the Maze Runner, the Scorch Trials, excuse viewer expectations or hit that Hollywood the chop more slams. Well, we would not exactly call it a slam, but more like a slight creep towards the stumble, where erase the first film's strength, live within the simplistic plot lines and the unique setting. The Scorch Trials fumble within the first half and pick itself up to finish strong. It is not a great movie, but it has the right amount of the action and is fast paced enough to keep you entertained. Maze Runner The Scorch Trials arrive in theaters Friday. Maze Runner The Scorch Trials arrives in theaters Friday, 18th September. Check out the official trials below. Maze Runner Scorch Trials review. With a narrative devoted to action, the Maze Runner Scorch Trials keep the audience in the game but leaves them with and the unsatisfactory sequel adaptation from the James Densher Yash series. The film follows Thomas and his fellow Glender as they find themselves in a safety haven run by their enemy Wisicadia, convinced that the Wisicadia has the intention of killing the group. Thomas and their friend escape the safe zone and enter a life disrupted wasteland desolated by a pandemic known as the Flow. With no maze, the group cross a desert and the encounters corrupted civilizations while being chased by the Wisicadia. And like most journey through a desert one hardly know where they are going, neither did the market of them film. Significations, a kind point of the drama in the novel, had no appearance. All thought author Dasher does write action film point a lot to be, and the Scotch Trials follow this the pattern and make this state best they could with what they had to work with. The Maze Runner series delivers action and suspense through the series turbines action suspense through the use of the conventions. Symbols that hold a significant connections that is here to transform into movie material. In the novel, the tension between Trace and the Thomas relationship was the teen gambles. Thomas felt more of a guilt for the betraying her at time. Translate that into the movie, and there is little to the evidence of this drama. In fact, the weight of the treasure betrayal had little built up. It is the graduated though that is the Scorch Trials. Did no fall short in the action race. The zombie like the cranks people infected by the flurry provide the quality scenes of the foreboding as they scurried and they summoned crank upon crank, whatever the Thomas and the friend previously tracked through there the impending dome, where hanging from a collapsed skyscrapers the action was a constant. In the end, the Scorch Trials feels like a step for the last installment in the series, the Death Cure, that and the independent sequel. With all the action cards play in the deck, the marker will have to pull out some trams cracked if the trilogy too. Crank people infected by the flare providing a quality sense of the foreboding as is the sketch and the Simon cranks upon cranks, whatever Thomas and the friend previously tracked out their impending dome or were hanging from a collapsed skyscrapers, the action was a constant. In the end, the score trials feel like a stamp for the last installment in the series, the Death Cure, then and the independent sequel. With all the action cards play in the deck, the mark will have to pull out some trumps card if the trilogy to the series to end the successfully. The final wild card 6 out of the 10. The Maze Runner Scorch Trials movie review. This is a mostly spoiler-free Scotch Trials movie review, so the unless you like Under a Rag and have never seen the trials, in which case you won't know what I am the talking about anyway. You are all set. The Scotch Trials is a 131 minutes ticketing sprint from the start to finish. So strap you are the yoga pants and prepare for the exactly attack. The Scotch is hell. The director was well, made it no secret the planet on the characters being touched during this second film. He liked the movie to Star Wars Episode V, The Empire Strikes Back, the one where Luke lost and the orphan touch out. His head was a Scorpia and his was the horizon is the Kraken. The director was well made it no secret the planet or the characters being trashed. During the second film, he linked the movie to Star Wars Episode V The Empire Strikes Back, the one where Lucky lost and the orphan Dage found out his the dad was a back, the one where Lucky lost and the appendage found out this dad was a Scopia and hand was the horizon is the fracking Caribbean. Let's just say that was well delivered. The Maze Runner kid did not look glamorous on the run. Alaris show how perfectly caffeinated Manny and the eye makeup in the instant. The look, sweetie hanger, and the smelly and the sun between. At one point, Treasure lives look so dry and the cracked. I had an I had an instant to put the lipstick on in the theaters. I was also in ordinary 30 though in ordinary thirsty through the entire film. Sympathy paints. Smoothing was the no vacations on an Italian resorts either. Filming was located in the New Mexico desert where night temperatures dropped rapidly, some things into the single digits. King Hong got King Hong got appendiced. Though brightly some things into the single digits, Key Long got abductions. Kia Scordia had the kidney failure. Disaster Darren for the hospitalized with the skilly cell enemy. The Dallin O'Brien constant the flu was the out for the 2 days and come back only to back a leg in the middle of a scenes. The scene was used in the movie. I did not think even the most adaptant Bruce Willis die-hard fan could climb this movie is foresees. The character sprint, climb and the journey fill in the Terry and form agent of the mysterious VCKDA organization Zombie and the even other survivor. On the Particles Awesome sequence has the O'Brien and the newcomer Rose Lasers, my new girl crush, climbing through the interior of a climbing skyscrapers that the leaning against another building, being the pressed by the survival full trumps convey cranks. During those action sequences, the actors appearing let it, I have no doubt in my mind that the Dallin O'Brien can actually fire a gun, run full littles, and the slide under a door. Especially the last of the US, which is no surprise since the director had this the star as a visual effect arts. Most good games have a cut and the pass For me, it's similar to the Ye Resistance movie. The characters are shown into on the impossible wideness and they have to survive along the way. They pick up tools, skill and the allies. Those last two sentences are the most association smarty of the Scorch Trials that you will never find. I was exist when they found the underground. They could let up their the backpacks and head out in the Scotch. I was even more executed. They had pieces of pipe and the baseball bits attached to their backpiece because it's just like a video game. Book to the movie difference. You know, we have written many sports about it, except it's now, wherein we talk about how you should build a bridge and get over it. Well, you should, unless the change remove a steamy cave. Well, you should, unless the change remove a steamy cave scenes with and the explained baby, daddy Hyler, and that change should never be accepted. Scotch trials make most of the previous example look like the minor offense. This movie laid waste to the original text and made some things entirely new, but there the best part, it worked and it had the author blessing are the difference between the Maze Runner movie and the books, of course. Having been involved from the beginning of the process, I surprised those chants from the novel to fill. It's a simple fact. Some things not that work on the page don't work in a movie, and vice versa. That's just way it is, and it's okay. That's the great news. No one is more familiar with the novels than I am. Yet the film gave me life that word and the characters in a new way I never have before. James disasters. The characters I love were we, the tone and word sketches I am familiar with were there, but I did not know what was the going to happen. It was crazy. The ending blew my mind. I was lake jaw and wide eyed just starting at the screen as the credit roll. I mean, how did that the fractions happen? Truth bomb. My post movie twist was the actually providing by an exacting help group. Bottom lines. This movie cannot stand alone. If you walk into the theaters having not watched The Maze Runner, you will be lost in a maze of the characters you did not know or no care about and the plot lines that are the completely unintelligent. There are no rendered escape plot lines that are the completely unintelligent. There are no read out escape of what has the happened previously and few if any characters building moments. It really helps if you have read the original book series by James Disters and check out the Exclusive Grapes novel prequel because even the new characters George and the Brenda don't have time to sit and the chat. This movie starts and ends with all the Slenders faring, leaving it a bit as the awkward middle child of the trilogy. Still, there are some genuinely thrilling, scary, awesome moments in the Scotch trials, and it left me watching more, Mino, more. Thomas was verbal. Cameron work. I see big things coming from this tractor cast and the crew. I cannot wait to see how it all ends. The final film, The Death Cure, is set to start shooting is the February. After you have seen the flick, come back and share your own review. All movie review Maze Runner The Scorch Trials. Maze Runner The Scorch Trials is not a great film, but it had every potential to the utilize, arsenal and the failed in one case except while the first film of the Maze Runner series was a singular introduction into this world, the sequel takes the group of the ranking youngsters and throws them into a planet Maze Runner the Scorch Trials into a great film, but it had every potential to the utilize is the Astal and the fail in 1K except while the first film of the Maze Runner series was a fantastically singular introduction into this world, the sequel takes the group of regards youngsters and throws them into a planety world where people either live is still in an cold underground bunker or have been stricken ill with Vina version that returns them into a cranks or to make things simple, quick zombie. It's a black version for the Fluter and the Thomas. Delan O'Brien and his friends are the seemingly the key for the cure of the humanity. At least that's what every pagan believes, and she will do anything she can to ensure she gets her hands on them. Starting immediately where the first film left off, the group find themselves in the care of the mysterious Jasons, who unsurprisingly Jason's Aden Gallon, who unsurprisingly has the ulterior motives with the help of New Kids area. Thomas realizes these nefarious plans and gets him and his friend out of the VCKD headquarters and out into the Scotch landscape, where it becomes from the start to finish one giant chase sequence. Along the way, they run into the George and the Brenda Ross, who have been hiding out from Wikipedia for years, and it's with them that the movie truly comes to life. Let's face it, in order for the Maze Runner Scorch Trials to be a great film, it had to overcome the never impossible hurdle of its source material, which is the rather unimpressive that, coupled with a disorganization's adaptation by the screenwriter T.C. Nor, creates a film that is quite frankly incomprehensible at the times. Little characters development happens in the 2 hours plus movie, and overall it feels like a race from the introduction to final, actively playing the bridge between the 2 hours plus movie, and overall it feels like a race from introduction to final, actively playing to begin between the story. There are certain aspects of the film that seems as if they were afterthoughts. Moments were thrown out, putting the film together. They need reasons for the characters to arrive from the point A to point B. The script is a mess, and there the familiarity with the film narrative that was the referencingly missing in the previous film. One beach abandoned explained in the order to create a real sense of the mysterious, one that the accompanied our leader's scheme had kept. However, deposit the script, determination to write the lookisters and the dismantling film. The director and the character cast of the characters managed to take the scarp left for them and they create a film that in the end is a highly enjoyable theater experience. The major flaw is that the writer was unable to screw the rest of the talent at the hand. The film Rounded Ups is the first escape that catches the viewer eye, creating a world beyond the fresh faces we did met in the isolated glad from the Clarksons and the Clancy icy baddies imposed world. Cart naturals and the chemistry with the O'Brien and the Slazer to a scene telling Alan Tuskey and the deprived nightclub over and the Lily Taylor as the leader of a rebel. These actors are the putting their all into what could have been simply back check performance, and it instantly ensured that the setting they are the inhabiting. Of course, this film belonged to the younger cast. O'Brien has grown into this more since the first installment, playing much more of an the action hero, all thought still showcasing his the vulnerabilities. The cast has the wonderful Cameria and Will. I did have loved to see more of Thomas Bordia, Strangers, Climb News, and the Key Hong Lee. Mino, the film does a decent bleaching act of all its the characters. The main star of the film, though, even more than a strong O'Brien, is Bell the director. Without Bell, invasions and the youthful imitations, this film would have been too run off the mill to save. Bold directions along with the cinematography by Galen Paddis and the sweeping score by the John Panso, the film create a reliable teen ability. We feel the grim and blink the sand out of our eyes. We feel the claustrophobia as our characters get stuck in a dead end tunnel with the crank. There's some beautiful imagery that comes along. Whatever is be the white shot of the sleigh outed characters as they hear a gunshot in the distance as a fellow friend makes the only movie he has, or as a Thomas awakens in the eye of a violent thunderstorm with the landscape empty escape for the surviving flesh and the crabs. They are the hypnotic rave scenes in the third act that seems pulled from the another movie altogether as the Thomas and the Brenda are the drug and trying to find their friends in a sea of the lost faces. This plays action sequence in an off-the-killer skyscraper with the Thomas and the Branda against the monster Bell's skill and just how far he has grown as the filmmaker. Instead of the action scenes growing, respective which they easily could have due to sheer amount of them, they instead always seem to be the able to find a new angels. Maze Runner the Scorch Trials is a hell of a lot of fun, harshly energetic, and the action pack is the speed through one the pillars even to the another with a refreshingly diverse cast to charming group dynamic and a director who has a strong and thorough visions. Even the written does not. The Scorch Trials is at the very least an entertaining film and something that is all you need it to be. It's just a shame to think about the what could have been. Miss, with a refreshingly discovered, a charming group dynamic, and a director who has a strong and thorough visions, even if the written does not. The Scotch Trials is at the very last and the entertaining film and the some things that all you need it to be. It's just shame to think about the what could have been. Maze Runner The Scotch Trials is out in the theaters now. Maze Runner 2 drops Virgin box office with $43.3 million. Maze Runner The Scotch Trials raced to the top of the foreign box office, picking up a robust 43.3 million from the 66 markets. The young adult thriller took the top spot in the 30 of the those territories. Its strong start with the fueled by the healthy debuts in the South Korea, where it earned $7.5 million, Russian with the $3.8 million, Brazil with the $2.7 million, and the Venezuela with the $2.5 million. Next weekend, the film will expand into the seven additional markets, including Germany, Belgium, and the Switzerland. So for the second, Maze Runner has earned $108.3 million globally. It debuted in the USA on Friday, but got a jump on its the domestic release by the Boeing in survival territories last weekend. 20th Century Fox is the distribution the fifth film, which cost 61 million to produce and the focus on a group of the teenagers negative a deadly post apocalyptic world. In second place, Universal Everest earned $28.2 million across 36 international territories, bringing its the worldwide total of the $35.8 million. The adventure film debuted this weekend in North America with a special IMAX and the premium larger format run, earning a sizable $7.6 million from the 545 locations. Overseas, the film opened in the first place in more than a dozen locations, including Australia, India, Mexico, the UK, and the Ireland. Avarice tells the story for a group mountain climbers whose attempt to the summit the famous mountain and in the tragedy it cost $55 million to produce and star Jason Clarke, Jason Brolin, and the Jack Gyllenhaal. Mayonnaise captures third place overseas, grossing an estimated $22.8 million across 57 territories and the pushing its the worldwide total to the $1.12 million. The bulk of the weekend gross came from the China, where the Universal and the Illuminations Entertainment release took first place with a $90.8 million deposit. Competition for family audience from the Sony Pixels, the Adam Sandler's video game comedy and $11.7 million from the People Republic. In fourth place, Mission Impossible Rogue Nations added $21.2 million to its the haul, with $656.4 million worldwide. The fifth film in the spy series is closing in our Ghost Protocol, $694.7 million global take. In fourth place, Mission Impossible Rogue Nations added $21.2 million to its haul, with the $656.4 million worldwide. The fifth film in the Spy series is closing in on Ghost Protocol, $694.7 million global take as it tries to become the highest grossing film in franchise history. China has been particularly hopeful in that the pursuit Ryush nations pick up $80.2 million in the country and has earned $120 million from the China since opening there on 8 September. High school comedy Fuck You Cure 2 took fifth place with the $60 million. The German production has earned $43 million in 2 weeks after breaking record to become the biggest local film debut in the country history. Maze Runner, The Scorch Trials, box office Black Mass and the Everest opening strong. Rings around Black Mass at the USA box office. Dystopian sequel Maze Runner The Scorch Trials scored the top spot at the USA box office this weekend with an opening haul of the $30.3 million, just ahead of the Johnny Depp Oscar tip run as a brutal Boston mob boss in the Black Mass. The Fear Tale came in behind series opener The Maze Runner, which managed $32.5 million on the debut a year ago. Dallin O'Brien, Thomas Bordian Strangers, Ki Hong Lee, Kia Scordia, and the Patricia collections written for the sequel, which has received mixed review. This time around, the Maze Runner are pitched against a new series of theaters and being to discover more about the mysterious Viscaria organization that theaters them after escaping the artificial maze environment. Rosa Slazers, Jesco Loflintz, Lily Taylor, and the Alan Tedke joined the new cast. Black Mass, which is the eye and the over season, run after winning the criticized at the Toronto, Trilogy and the Venice Film Festival score a more than the respectable $23.4 million on debut in the second place. Starting depths as the mysterious real-life gangster Whitey Bulgars who enjoy a region of the terror over South Boston's in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. Scott Copper Crime biopic also features Joel Addison's Benedict Cumberbatch, Kevin Bacon, Corey Stalls, Peter Started, and the Jesse Ploman in the supporting roles. The only other new film to make the top 10 this weekend was the disaster thriller Everest, which grossed $7.5 million on limited release to land in the fifth spot. Lester's Cambroker film only screened at the 545 IMAX and larger format locations taking a spectacular $30,867 per site and the breaking IMAX September opening record with the 6 million from the 33 cities. 6 million from the 366 seats. Started Jason Clarkson Jones, starting Jason Clark, Jason Brolin, Robin Wright, Carilla K. Knight, Sam the Washingtons, and the Jackie Gyllenhaals. The film centers on the two groups of the climbers catch up in the 1996 Mountain Everest disaster when a Brazil took the lives of the 8 people on the Vertals Peak. It will open across the USA and the Canada next week. The top 5 was roundly about my the top 5 was roundly out by Shyamalan Horror The Visit with the $11.3 million for a second week total of the $42.3 million in third, and last week number 1 The Perfect Guy with the $9.7 million in its second week for a total of the $41.5 million outside the top 10 criticals acclaim. Damnen's villainous crime thriller Sequoia scored the highest locations average of the year so far, $65,000 on limited release at the Six Cinema in New York and the Los Angeles. Outside the top 10 criticals acclaim, Devan's villainous crime thriller Scorpio scored the highest locations average of the year so far, 65,000 on limited release at the Six Cinema in New York and the Los Angeles. Of all the novels adaptation, The Maze Runner was for Rose, but it was not any good either. It had and the integrating primes, but its approach to storytelling was so prospective and full of the teasing that it made Diamond Landfall written seems straightforward. It was a film that basically felt like just a setup for a sequel, and now we have one in the form of the Scorch Trials. While it's a market improvement over its the predecessor, it's only better in that it has gone from the stupid to generic. Picking up right where the first film left off, the Scotch Trials answers some of the questions raised in the original but leaves others to continue allowing. Thankfully, it does not dwell on its the mystery as much this time, instead becoming more focused on a simple action adventures go from A to B to C plot. While this does make the story less aggravating to pick apart, it now leaves even less impact. For the most part, The Scorch Trials is an the incredible practical movie because it relieves too much on tropes and the borrow too many ideas from the other film. The first act set in the military base research faculty is near identical to the first half of the Michael's Bay, the Iceland, and then the film introduced zombies but has the absolutely new ideas about what to do with them. The story is basically just a filmy thread linking together a series of action sequences, and what is not action is just characters.